Okay, so we are back at the Truesec Reactor. Last episode we talked about using the hydration toolkit to build a lab environment. Never mind. Never mind that. We're going to continue that discussion, and we are focusing on using the hydration kit to build the lab environment. And I did that just because I know how to use Zoom. Here we have the domain controller. I'm going to flip this to a enhanced session. That way it gets a little bigger screen. So I'm going to ask the domain admin here on this machine. Let's see what really have been happening on this machine before we continue. We do have an Active Directory. We do have a domain name here, apparently. It says the domain name is, whoops, sorry, that wasn't my intention, but let's do it that way. You can see that the domain is corpthefakedomain.com, which is the domain name I choose. We have corp, we have admin accounts, we have service accounts, we have user accounts. This is, of course, something you can configure on your own. We have OUs for different things and items. You have for workstations as well. We have groups. All this is just in the XML file, so you can define how you want this to be configured and built. When you build a lab environment or test environment, you can also use this for production if you want to, but who will ever build a new Active Directory domain again? Since that belongs to the legacy. So we have all that. We also have DHCP configured, hopefully. Should be here. IP4. We have things like a scope with an address pool, reservations. We also have configuration here, properties. DNS is configured, name protection is configured, we don't have any filters, failover is not configured, we do have credentials configured, we should have that one. I haven't fixed that one yet, but that should be bumped up to like 2 or 3, etc, etc, etc. So it did configure a complete domain controller. Let's leave this server for now, because it is a working and healthy, perfectly healthy domain controller. Let's build a new one. Let's build the lab DC02. This is also going to take some time. So we're going to need to fast forward in the end, but generally this is going to be faster. Now, the overall time it takes for me using the hydration kit to build the complete environment from nothing to done, 2 domain controllers, file, print, remote desktop, deployment, config manager, the entire system center suite, etc, etc, etc. It takes somewhere around 4 to 6 hours from nothing to done. If you do it fully automated. Otherwise, it takes a day to build it. If I just need to build a few of these machines, which is usually like the domain controller and a couple of other machines, it's less than an hour from nothing to done. And of course, everything can be automated if you want to. But I do like the semi-manual approach. The semi-manual approach means that I don't need to automate everything for all situations, but it also gives me the ability to be a bit more flexible. So here we have another Windows server. Now it is in the same network. As you can see, it's picking up the DHCP scope address, finds the DNS, etc, etc, etc. Copy that, but we're going to make this a secondary domain controller. This time we're going to also take a peek look at one of the other scripts, the one that every deployment starts with. And let's go here so you can see that with your own eyes. It is going to be the deploy server here. This script is the one script you run after gather, that gathers all the data, that does a lot of things. It has a couple of modules that it's using, but it's basically doing this. So ignoring all these tiny things, let's focus on this one. Creating a log file. Sure, we need to do that. We are looking for something called the progress, which is a registry value to see if the machine is done. If that is the case, then we're done. Then we do something weird, because now you need to understand that this script needs to run multiple times, right? So first we run it, and then it comes to a section where it needs to reboot. After that, it needs to be able to pick up where it left. So it's kind of a PowerShell-driven task sequence without being a task sequence. We use the marker for that. So a hydration marker means that we are defining where we are. In this case, we are setting a hydration marker with the name of the task sequence that we're running. So that's going to end up in the registry. Then we're looking for something called the restart PS. Restart PS is generated when you run the command the first time. So when you start this the first time, it actually generates a restart. Restart is then scheduled or put in the run once key with an automatic reboot. So the next time it actually runs that command. So it tries to look for that file. If you can't find it, well, then we don't have one, and that's fine. Then we need to configure a network. If we said we should configure a network, then we flag that as step number 1 with the step of network. Then we have the hydration marker, and we figure out where we are. So if we have done this step before, and it completed successfully, then we don't need to run it again, and that means that we're going to skip it. If we did say we want to configure the data disks, then that's going to be step 2. If that's already done, then it's going to skip that. If we said we will configure identity, then it's going to try to configure identity unless we already configured identity, because then we don't care about identity. And then we run something called a default configuration, which is true for all servers. If you go to the roles here, and you can see here the roles for role default. This is going to happen for all the machines. We are going to enable remote desktop. We're going to disable a couple of services and uninstall roles like SMB1 because we don't want to have that. We're going to set the performance collector if we can. We're going to set the server manager so it behaves the way we want it to, etc., etc., etc. So this is going to happen for all the servers. And if you want to have your own things in here, just add them to this. This is going to happen for all the servers you have. Going back to the deployment server here, once we're done with the default config here, we will then do a custom config. Now, the custom configuration is kind of cool, easy. It's the role. Right? We said this is the role you want to have. So if we go back here to the TE-settings.xml file and go here and it says, well, your computer role is TE-ADS01. Well, that's a file. And it's going to be in here, in the roles, TE-ADS01. Okay. And this is going to be added to just another script that it runs. So here we set a new marker because we're running a new file. Import all the modules we need to have for this particular file, and then we have steps within this file to install roles and features, configure roles and features, and building the entire Active Directory with all the accounts and users and groups that we need to have, including configuring the network location services that is sometimes behaving weird in virtual machines. So that means that in theory you can add whatever you want, meaning you can have your second domain controller, or third, or fourth, or management server, or SharePoint server, etc., etc. We don't have all the roles ready for everything yet. We have a lot that you can download, and if you want to create your own, please feel to do so. So I'm going to close these ones because we don't need to have them, and we're going to go back to